Hi, I'm Craig Milkowski, taking a look at the Grade 3 Gazelle Stakes for Timeform US. It's a 100-point race towards the Kentucky Oaks. This will be one of the final preps run, so we're likely to see some of these horses in the first Friday in May this year. The favorite in the race, Life Talk, she's a horse who we saw a lot of as a 2-year-old, winning some stakes. Her return race wasn't very good, but it looks like morning line maker David Aragona is still expecting her to take the bulk of the action. And interestingly enough, the second choice is Where's My Ring, who's still a maiden after 7 starts. She was entered last week in the fantasy at Oaklawn, obviously didn't run and shows up here, and we'll get to her, but she's obviously very dangerous as well. This is a race where I think the pace projector could play a pretty large part in this, how this race develops. It's one we have shown as a fast pace, and I don't have any arguments with the pace projector in this one. There is quite a bit of speed in here. We show Carmelina up on the lead. Regulatory risk has shown plenty of speed, has money grab. Even the maiden Where's My Ring has been on the lead at times in 2-turn races. So it's one where I do think some pace is going to develop, but I wouldn't want to bet on who it's going to be because there could be some tactics at play. There's a pretty short run into the first turn, and all 3 of those shown near the front are drawn outside, so they could be in a hurry to get over to the rail. We'll take a look at the field in mostly post-position order, and we're going to start with that favorite, Where's My Ring? Not the favorite, the second choice. We're going to take a look at her last race. She's shipping in from Santa Anita Park, where we last saw her in the Grade 3 Santa Isabel Stakes at Santa Anita. Here she was running into the really strong Kinza, who's scheduled to run in the Santa Anita Oaks on this same day. Kinza, she's trained by Bob Baffert, so we're not going to see her on in the Kentucky Oaks. But I would say she's the leader of the division right now. She's run a 119 speed figure that day. So no disgrace for Where's My Ring to finish second to that one. And you can see it shows in her speed figure. She's run into some really tough company in her maiden races, finished second those last 2. But her speed figures are the best in the field. And I don't think it's any mistake for her trainer, Van Brinkerhoff, to be running her in this ambitious spot. Let's move on to Who Could Ask for Mo? Sent out by Shug McGahee. She comes off a bit of a disappointing effort in the Devona Dale. She really didn't do much running that day. She had been second in the stakes at Tampa behind Power Squeeze, who since came back to win the Gulfstream Oaks last week, but she doesn't really have the speed figures to stack up. I guess you could say she has some excuses. She's a filly who likes to run from off the pace. She's run into a couple blue fraction races, even that Devona Dale, there wasn't a whole lot of pace. She was wide all the way around, so maybe she could get in there if the pace heats up like we describe, like we expect, but it would be quite the shocker if she were to win in this spot. Next up, let's look at Princess Vino. Princess Vino comes in off a good third in a New York bred allowance. Seems like she's going to be quite a long shot in here. Even that day, her speed figure of 82 is nowhere near what we saw from Where's My Ring. All of the favorites in here have run well north of the 100 speed figure mark. So Princess Vino really has her work cut out for her. Next, we'll take a look at Barbara Tina. And she's an interesting filly in that she's changing surfaces. She's been running at Turfway Park, obviously. But she did have some success on the dirt in Kentucky earlier in her career. Her speed figures are ascending. She's going to be a bit of a price in here, but for Brad Cox, she's not one I would totally rule out if she's able to transfer that 96 speed figure we saw from her last time. And you'll note the P notation on that speed figure says we actually downgraded it because it was a really fast-paced race at Turfway, and that tends to inflate the numbers. But you see the final time number for that race was a 112. They were really flying. So if she's able to get anywhere near there, she could be dangerous getting back onto the dirt surface. Next comes the morning line favorite in Life Talk, a horse we're going to go 2 back to take a look. As I said, she was pretty disappointing in that Suncoast Stakes, the one that Who Could Ask for Mo was actually coming out of. Didn't do any running at 2 to 5 that day, but she was 2 to 5 for a reason. And it was this race, the Demoiselle, being run at Aqueduct in early December. She went off that day as the even money favorite. It is a day that probably was favoring speed. We have it coded in red, but she ran a nice 102 speed figure that day before the disappointment. If she could get anywhere back to that, she's going to be dangerous in here. She's trained by Todd Pletcher, and maybe some people might want to make comparisons to Fierceness, who similarly he came off a bit of a longer layoff than what Life Talk is doing, but he had disappointed in his first out and really exploded second out. So it's just an angle to keep in mind. But Life Talk is probably going to be overbet, in my opinion, in this field. Next up, we take a look at Six Pack Senorita. She is very likely to be the rank outsider in this field. I think she was the longest shot on the morning line, if memory serves. She just broke her maiden in a maiden claiming race. She's yet to go beyond 6 furlongs, yet to run over an 80 time form US speed figure. So she's not for me, but if you can find a reason to like her, she would light up the tote board with a victory. Next, we're going to take a look at a replay which shows 3 horses in this field, and that is the Busher Stakes, which was also a Kentucky Oaks point race. 3 of the horses in here, we have Carmelina, among others. She's the one who's going to finish best in this field. It's a race that, like I said, 3 of them are coming back in here. It was a fairly strong race from a speed figure perspective. Pretty big gap from those top 2. And Jody's Pride, who actually won this race, is probably one of the early favorites for the Kentucky Oaks. She is actually going to run at Keeneland this weekend in a more highly graded race. But it was a fairly strong field. We'll start by taking a look at Carmelina, and her speed figures stack up pretty nicely, particularly that 109 to Jody's Pride. It's as good as anything we've seen other than Where's My Ring in those Southern California maiden races. Better than Life Talk ran in the Demoiselle. My one concern about her is that she is a horse who pretty much needs the lead. The mile and an eighth seems like it could be a little bit of a question mark for her. And also does the pace scenario. As we saw, there's plenty of speed entered. So she's going to have to go from that outside post. I think she's a strong pace presence, but not one I would want to put on the front end. Now let's take a look at Jin Jin, also from that same race. She finished 3rd behind Jody's Pride and also behind Carmelina. But of the two, those 2 from that race so far that we've talked about, I would actually prefer her. Because I think she is one who she's already went the longer distance. We see that she won a stakes race in January at a mile and an eighth at Aqueduct with a 101 time form US speed figure. She turned back to that 1-turn mile, which, as it turns out, was probably a little bit short for her. But I would suspect that she is much more likely to prefer this 9 furlongs, and I would expect her to improve on that pair of 101 time form US speed figures that we see the last couple times out. The 3rd horse from that Busher Stakes is Regulatory Risk, coming in for the Chad Brown barn. She was 7-1 that day. She pressed the pace, didn't have a whole lot left. Her speed figure improved a little bit. What I don't really like about her is her best running has also come on the front end, as we noted on the pace projector. She really hasn't taken any kind of step forward speed figure wise, something that you would like to see for a 3-year-old filly. This is her 5th start. Maybe she'll get a little better, but she needs a big jump. And from that post in this pace scenario, I think it could be a pretty tough ask. One more horse to take a look at in this field, and that's Money Grab. Money Grab comes in off a nice allowance score at Aqueduct in the 1-turn mile. She'll be trying 2 turns for the first time. She only ran a 90 speed figure. She's going to need to take a big jump in here. Seems like she would be part of that big pace being drawn outside, probably having to go as her wins have come in wire to wire fashion. So a tough ask from Money Grab from the 10 post. Let's take a look at my selections for this Grade 3 race, and the winner, my top selection will be Where's My Ring. I hope she'll wind up being the winner. I don't think those speed figures that we saw out in Southern California are any fluke. They were some strong maiden races she's coming out of. the stakes race she tried last time, she was behind the division leader. I think she just offers a really good, she's going to get a good trip from the rail, and just looks like one that's going to be very competitive in here, despite being a maiden. My second choice in here, I went with Jin Jin. I think she's really going to appreciate that stretch out to 9 furlongs, getting back to it after that 1-turn mile. I would expect her to improve her speed figure quite a bit. So where's my ring for me? And that does it for me and Timeform US.